Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap and welcome to the Mumbai Card Kit tutorial. This is an absolutely beautiful collection. We have a lot to learn today, so let's get to it. And I've got my kit ready with the beautiful ribbons and fibers. We've got a couple of embellishments and sequins. We'll set those aside for later. And then of course we have all of our envelopes. They're white this month. And our cards and panels. Get those set aside and right down to business with our cut-aparts. I've got my trimmer ready along with my accordion pocket file. And remember, if you're a member, you'll have access to the instructions in order to make your own accordion pocket file. It really helps us stay organized. Of course, I also have a copy of the printed instructions. So let's grab our first cut-apart. We're looking for the one with a lot of narrow strips. And this will start vertically in the trimmer. And our registration guide here indicates we need to cut at around 6 inches. Once we've done that, we'll rotate so that that skinny little scrap will be on the right. And I'm going to make a slight little neaten up cut, I call it, just in case there's a little bit of deviance from that registration mark. And then we'll just go on down the line. Right, you can collect all of these narrow strips and put them in the pile or pocket for card set B. So that's my second pocket, and then this is a scrap. I usually just put that in the fourth pocket, which is where I can go if I want to have access to a couple of those little scraps. Then we'll cut this other strip horizontally. The two tag-like pieces will be filed in pocket C, and then the You're the Best and Feel Better, those both go with A. We'll separate these. The smallest piece is a scrap, and the other two pieces will be filed in pocket C. Moving right along to the second sheet, I'll place it vertically, and you have to be really careful because if you think you're going to cut right here, once you reach the bottom, you're going to be going right through the artwork. So just be very aware of your cuts before you make them. So I'll just make one vertical cut, rotate, and trim horizontally. The 4 tags will all go in pocket B, and then after I separate these, the 2 additional tags will go in pocket C, and these other 2 pieces are actually scraps. Next, just be aware of where you need to make rotations for this last and final piece. These 2 pieces will be filed in pocket C. And then we'll trim these 2 individual rectangles. This smaller piece is a scrap. The other 2 rectangles will go in pocket C. Once separated, all 4 of the squares will go in pocket A. Finally, our last sheet of cut-aparts. You might even think there's not a way that you can cut them with a trimmer without breaking through the artwork. But if you just turn it horizontally, you'll be able to make this first cut right there. Once you have these 2 pieces that are the same separated, those will go in pocket B. And then these other 2 art elements will go in C. You also have a couple of little plain scraps from that session, and then we're going to cut, rotate, and continue to separate these elements. The 2 larger pieces go in pocket B, and then the 2 squares will go in A. For the last pieces, this long narrow piece joins everybody else in pocket B. These 2 narrow strips go in pocket C. And this last guy is a scrap. We have a little bit more trimming to do on some of the card panels. So if you look in your stack of card panels, I want you to find the dark blue square. There should just be one of these. We're going to turn these into 4 squares. So currently it's 4 by 4. So we're going to cut at 2. And then stack the 2 pieces and cut horizontally again at 2. Take all 4 of the squares and pocket them in A. Next, I want you to find the single pink panel. It's vertical. It's the measurement of this panel is 4 by 10. We're going to make 4 belly bands out of this that are 1 inch wide. So we're just going to trim it at 3, 2, and 1. I had this panel trimmed grain short for you so that it would fold around easily to create that belly band, and all 4 of these pieces will go in pocket A. Next, I want you to find a pile of 4 dark blue panels. These measure 4.5 by 6 3/4. We're going to trim them in half vertically to make 2 panels. So you could do 2 at a time, which is what I'm going to do right now. So slide that in. It's currently 4.5. We want to trim it in half at 2 1/4. And then take all of them and file them in pockets B. Next, dig through your stack and you're going to find a single orange panel. This was 3 1/4 by 10. Let's trim it horizontally a whole bunch of times to make a series of 8 narrow panels for our step-up card. So here are the numbers: 8 3/4, 7.5, 6 1/4, 5, 3 3/4, 2.5, and 1 1/4. All of them will be used in pocket C. Of the remaining panels, we just have a little bit of prep work to do and some filing. Now here is a very important bit of information. You're going to find some light blue panels. There will be 2 stacks. One will be taller than the other, and it's really important that these are filed into the correct place, because when I made my initial prototypes I had them backwards and I thought something was terribly wrong, but it was actually correct, just a little confusing. So if you stacked up both light blue panel sets, the taller one will go in pocket A, and then the medium sized, or the smaller one, will go in pocket B. Then you also have a series of 4 smaller orange panels. Those go in pocket C. Now we have a little bit of scoring to do, so I'm going to swap my trimmer for a score pal. Let's begin with the cards for set A. So it's each yellow card base will be scored horizontally at 2 1/8 and 6 3/8. Now if you are using this model of the score pal, you will notice that there's a little dot at each of those measurements, and that's because this is a commonly used measurement for a gatefold card. Once all that's done, you can go ahead and file these in pocket A. Now this next scoring step is actually a time saver. This is a situation where you score once and cut once instead of cutting and then scoring twice. So you'll see the benefits later on, but basically we're going to score each of these 4 by 7. This is going to become a shutter for our shutter gatefold card. We're going to score them vertically at 3 1/2. What that will make is just a little 1/2 inch tab. Don't file these quite yet. We're going to do one more cut to help make our shutter. And let's move on to the pink card bases. These measure 7 by 9, and we'll score them at 2 1/2 and 6 1/2. And then we're going to flip this card base bottom up to the top and score again at 3 1/2 and 5 1/2. Let's do that again. 2 1/2, 6 1/2, flip bottom to top, 3 1/2, 5 1/2, and then repeat for the remaining card bases. You can take all of these pink card bases and put them in pocket B. The last larger light blue card bases are going to be used for card set C. For now, I'm going to have you file them, and we will tackle the step-up card together once we get to that card set. Lastly, let's take these pink shutter pieces, and we're just going to quickly trim them in half. So they're currently 7 inches, so we're cut at 3 1/2. That's a horizontal cut, of course. All of this will go in pocket A. For card set A, I've got a cutting mat handy, and of course a ruler and craft knife. And I've gone ahead and sorted out what was in my pocket into some different piles. So basically, to construct one of the cards, we're going to do the first card in the instruction series with the hey on the front. So we'll need the hey sentiment, and then you're the best for the inside. Then we'll need one of those dark blue squares and a pink belly band, plus the yellow card base. Then we're going to do some treatment to all of our vertical light blue panels, and we're going to make our shutters. The other pieces have also been sorted just like this one, and I have an A2 envelope here, and so we'll just take the remaining pieces for our cards and slide all of them into that envelope so everything stays contained in one place for this card set to work with after we've made our prototype. So let's just go ahead and construct the outside of the card. To do that, we can fold onto the score lines so that the bump of the score is on the inside of the fold. Now, all the fun is going to happen inside here, but it's okay, we can still make the outside of our card. For that, we'll need our pink belly band. So I'll just take this band, and if you want, you can even use the grid on your cutting mat to kind of have everything completely aligned and squared, and then just fold around to the front with the belly band. And you just want to have it just tight enough that it'll stay on and just loose enough that you can still get it off. Now what I usually do to secure the bands is just make a small piece of adhesive on this end, and then of course on the other end, so that both ends stick together perfectly. And now I have a band. So we have the dark blue square and the hay. What'll happen is the dark blue square will go behind the band, and then the hay will go on top. Before we staple anything, I'm going to take some of that orange satin ribbon and cut, I think it's a trapezoid, and then the ribbon wants to be folded in this direction, not the other, so we're folding with the grain. And I'll just take a mini stapler and add the ribbon to this sweet little hay. Then we can take some more adhesive, and we could even do that here, like if you want to make sure everything is not going anywhere, just adding some adhesive that's crossing over onto the blue square and the pink belly band, and then just take that hay panel and put it right on top. And that way the seam of the belly band is on the front but completely sandwiched and hidden between the blue mat and the art panel. So there's the belly band construction. You can do that 4 times. Now the inside, and this is where the fun begins. So we have all of these shutters, and there will be 2 for each card, and then this other little piece that will fit in here. So some time-saving tricks for you. Let's just take this one step at a time, and we'll start out with a ruler and craft knife. Let's begin with one of the pink shutter papers, and you'll notice that I have the score on the right, and the indentation of the score is on the top, and the bump of the score is facing my work surface. I'm going to take my grid ruler and a pencil, and I'm going to find the center and 2 inches from the left edge. So if I have my 0 right here, and this bigger bolder line in the ruler running vertically is 1 inch, this is 2 inches. Make sure that's lined up with the edges. And I want to make sure I'm centered from top to bottom. This is a 3.5 inch panel, so in height, and my measurement here and here is going to be 1 3/4 inch. So once I find, again, 2 inches from the left non-scored edge, centered from top to bottom, and that would be at 1 3/4, I'm going to make a small mark right at the 0 in a T shape, just like that. Then what I'm going to do is tilt the ruler so that the ruler is coming in contact with the intersection of my little T and the corner of the paper. Then with my craft knife, I just replace the blade so it's nice and sharp. I'm going to make an angled cut that leads right up to that mark. I'll rotate the paper and once again line up with this corner and go right to my pencil mark, 2 inches in from the edge. And now I've cut a V out of this piece. To save time, I only did that measuring step once. Then I have all my other shutters here. So I simply take the first shutter, which is now my template, and then I will, I'm marking on the side that won't be visible. So this is kind of a good tip as well. That's why I pointed out the fact that you want to have the indentation of the score facing you while you're drawing your pencil lines to trace your template. So repeat the tracing, always keeping your template on top, and do that for all 8 of these shutter pieces. Now, once you have these lines drawn, you can do one of two things. You can go back and use your craft knife and cutting mat, or you can take scissors with longer blades and just make a single cut, if possible, right to the tip of your shutter to remove that triangle. And you'll repeat that for all the remaining pieces as well, but we won't do that right now. Then I'm going to take two of the shutters, and we need to remove a small triangle from each corner. So it's really an eyeball thing. Just clip it a little bit, maybe about a ½ inch you're taking off. You'll do that for all 8 pieces as well. Next, we need to make a window for our shutter. In order to do that, if there is a right or wrong side to the paper, I'm not really sure, we're going to center the "You're the Best" or any of the inside sentiments for these cards onto this little piece here. And if you really wanted to make sure it's vertically centered, you can use your grid ruler to help make that happen. Looks like my measurement is 2 5/8, and from top to bottom, and then this is also a 1/4 inch from the edge and centered at 1 1/4. So now this sentiment is basically centered onto my light blue panel, and I will trace around it. This too will become a template for the windows you want to create on the remaining light blue panels. All we have to do at this point is take a craft knife and then remove this window. And you can cut just slightly outside of it if you would like. If the ruler indicates that your square is not quite level with the edge that you've traced, always default to the ruler. You want to make sure that you're nice and squared up on this piece. So now that I've removed this square image, this actually becomes a scrap, and then you can use the window that you've created to trace your cut lines for the remaining 3 light blue panels. For the next step, we'll be installing the light blue panel into the gatefold card. And to help me with that, I have some foam adhesive circles. Either way, you need some type of adhesive that will allow you to elevate this light blue panel a little bit. So I like to cut these in half, make them last a little longer. One of the things I love about these. And then I'll just put, I'm going to put 3 on each outside edge, 3 halvesies, and I'll align the straight edge of the circle with the straight edge of the panel, outer edge that is. Oops. And then I'll just remove the backing. All you need to do is, I would say eyeballing is fine. Just center the blue panel top to bottom into the yellow card base. I failed to flip this over to the side that doesn't have the pencil marks on it, so I'm going to come in with a quality eraser and just remove the pencil line. But in the future, just double check to ensure that the non-penciled side is facing up. And the same is true for our shutters. Now, before we install these, we're going to add the "You're the Best" right to the window here that we've created. And that's why it's okay for the window to just be slightly larger than the sentiment itself, so you can get it in there. Now here are the shutters, and this is the indentation of the score, and that's the penciled side. So let's flip everything over so that the bump of the score is facing up. That's what we want. And we're going to fold inward on that bump so that the bump of the score is on the inside of the fold. And then we're going to insert the shutter behind the window. So here's the left shutter, and I'm just going in there, and you can see how it's kind of fitting in there. Then you want to make sure the opposing shutter either goes completely above or completely beneath the other one. You don't want them crisscrossing. Just make sure one's on the bottom and one's on the top. And when the card opens, the shutter will open and reveal the sentiment. So we want to just try to make sure we're somewhat centered here, and that these little tabs that we've created with our score line kind of touch the edge of our vertical light blue panel. At this point, I'm going to take some clip scrap bookbinding glue and just squiggle some adhesive right onto the tab. And make sure my tabs are kind of level. If you really want to check, you can, before you close the card, just make sure that they're at the same spot, and then close right on top of that little flap. Just give it a second. It doesn't take long for this bookbinding glue to cure, especially if you haven't used too much. It gives you time to put the lid back on your needle tip applicator. And once they're secure, you can take it for a test drive, and bang! Isn't that fun? Keep the gate folds closed. You'll go ahead and top it with the belly band, and after that you'll be ready to make the remaining 3 cards. I have everything out of pocket B, or pile B, and I've organized it. So let's review what we need to make 1 card from this set. And again, we'll start it with the first card that you'll see in your instructions for card set B. You got, of course, the pink scored card base, and then you'll have 2 of the dark blue panels and 2 cut aparts that will fit onto those panels. Then you have the light blue center panel, 1 card sentiment for the front, and then a tag insert that corresponds with it. So this one says, "Thank you for being there." And we can take the remaining little pieces that I've also sorted in the same fashion, and these are going to be inserted into the largest envelope. That would be the A7, because these are going to make 5 by 7 inch cards. So everything will be here and ready to go after I make my prototype of this 1 card. We'll begin first by prepping this tag. Now you can do 1 of 2 things. You can just take a scissors and cut and lob off the outer triangle to make a finished looking tag, or you can take a ruler and a craft knife and just measure 1/8 inch from the pink border on this tag. That's 1 square on the ruler to make it match the same border size around the other 3 sides, to remove that triangle. And now I have a really good looking tag. Then I'm going to take the largest hole on my crocodile and punch a hole for the top of the tag. Then on this one, I think I'm going to use a blue sequin. And these sequins have a tiny little hole at the top. So I'm going to take the same exact sized hole on my crocodile and punch it so that I'm literally removing the original small hole, and that the edge of the punch is right on the top edge of that punched hole, so that I don't actually cut through the top edge of the sequin. I hope that makes sense. This way I can just apply a little bit of bookbinding glue to the sequin, and luckily they're blue on both sides. And just place this on top of the tag so that it aligns with the punched hole there. Just give it a second to cure. And then your kit comes with this really sweet length of a sheer pink ribbon, and I will thread that through the hole. And you can either just tie a knot or you can tie a bow. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and tie a cute little bow because I actually have enough ribbon for this. If you'd like, you can cut this ribbon into 4ths, because this is the only card set I'll be using them on, and that way you know you're not going to overuse, or you don't need to underuse either. There's plenty of ribbon to go around. Next, I'm going to take our base. Now, one of the things that we discovered had happened is that the margin on this isn't quite wide enough to make a 3-sided pocket where you would insert this into the top. So, the solution is very easy. I'm going to take my ruler and just make sure I've got everything centered and 1/4 inch. And I'm going to apply a thin line of adhesive only on the left and bottom edge of this piece. So again, left and bottom. So just a thin line of glue, left and bottom, in an L-shape manner. And I will place this back on the panel. I've got a 1/4 inch reveal on all the sides, and adhesion will only be here and here. That way I have like an angled way to insert the tag into the sort of pocket. And so if I fold so that the bump of the score goes on the inside of the folds, it will automatically create the structure that I'm looking for. So this is the bump, so I fold inward on that, and lo and behold, it creates a card that will stand up. even though it's a A7, it's a pretty big card. In the original version I did, it was only an A2 or like a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I played around with the measurements a little bit to make this work, and I just love how it turned out. So you got this little pop-up going on here in the middle. Then we have these two blue panels. Those will both fit on those outer sections of the card. Before we do that, let's attach the artwork to the panels, and we'll take a look at what our centering measurement is going to be. Looks like 3/8 of an inch. So I have it 3 3/8 at the top and bottom. It can really be anything as long as it's 3/8 of an inch from the edges, the long edge, and also the short edge. 3/8 of an inch. So that's on your ruler, that's 3 cubes worth, whether that cube is made by a dash line or a solid line. As long as you have 3 coming in from the edge and 3 up from the bottom. For a wide margin like that, it is nice to use your ruler to help you keep it nice and centered. And then I'll just add some adhesive, and then I'll put this on the left and right wing of the stand-up card. All that's left to be done is to attach our teal panel to the card. I'll remove the tag for now, and I'm going to make sure that I don't put adhesive on these outside edges, because once the card flattens, if you have adhesive here, the card will not stand up. So I'll just run it right through the center here, maybe just a little extra, and let's center this onto the card. And you can flatten it and sort of use everything as a framing reference here to make sure that it's nice and level and centered. And then just insert your tag into the pocket. Nice. And you have an adorable little stand-up card. The rest of them are put together the exact same way, so just consult your instructions to see which card and sentiment goes with which tag. But you'll notice that there is a small little space right here at the bottom, and it's the perfect spot on which to put one of our bronze elephant charms. I'm going to use some of the bookbinding glue to just add glue right to that flat outside edge of the elephant. So this is going to always be the last thing you do before you set that card aside to really dry. But it doesn't take long. Let's make our last card, set C. These are step-up cards, and I think one of the reasons we call them step-up cards is because they involve quite a few steps, but we'll manage just fine. I don't want you to worry about it. These are really fun cards. Let's do a little bit of prep work. First of all, you'll need to have one of these card bases, and then a larger orange panel, 2 small orange panels, and then the corresponding decorative panels. Then we also have the center panel. In this case, we're going to make the It's Your Special Day and Make It Merry card. Maybe we'll just get this easy step out of the way here, and we'll nest the narrow strip onto the orange panel. Okay. Do not nest this one until we do one little step. That involves the cutting mat and a craft knife. We're going to make a slit to create a little pocket for our tag in the top of this cut apart here. So I'm going to start on the innermost frame on that white line, and I'm just going to freehand with the tip of my really nice sharp craft knife, and make sure you stop when you reach the point of that little medallion there, and go ahead and cut that little peak right into it. And then make sure you actually have created a complete slit in that cut apart. When you nest this one onto the base, you want to make sure that you don't put any adhesive in the middle. So I'll use my bookbinding glue, and I'll add a perimeter of glue. And you can put glue on the side. In fact, you want to put glue above the slit, but not below it. And then center that onto the orange panel and set that aside to dry. We'll also be using some of this really pretty light blue velvet ribbon. I'm just going to cut another trapezoid shape and fold it in half. And let's staple it to the tag. Now what I want you to do is put the fold down a little ways, and then staple it right kind of around where that pink line is, so that there's a little bit of gap between the staple and the edge of the ribbon. And then when we slide this in to our little slot, the ribbon will go on top of the medallion, so it still fits nicely. The tag will fit well into this slot. Okay, now is the big time. You don't need an expensive die to make a step-up card, but you do need to follow along, and there will be a diagram in your instructions that will really help you. So I'm going to place that card vertically on my work surface and use my grid ruler to find 1.5 inches from the left edge. So it's going to be the dead center of my ruler. But I'll make sure the 0 is at the top and the 9 will be at the bottom of my card base. Okay, next I'm going to make a slot that starts 3.5 inches down from the top, from the top, and ends at 8 inches. So 3.5 to 8. Nice slot. There you go. That's all we need. Now I'm going to turn that card over. Since I am right-handed, I'm going to find the measurement again, and this time make sure I'm at 1.5 inches in the center of my ruler. This time I'll start at 1 inch and stop when I reach 5.5 inches. Okay, now I have 2 slots. That's all the cutting I need to do for my card, but next I need to have my score pal. If you look at your diagram in the instructions and also then place your card base into the score pal so that the slots are on the right and it's horizontal. You're going to make a score at 3.5 and then stop when you reach the slit. Then at 7 and 8, same thing, stop when you reach the slit. If you want, just flip the card over, score again at 3.5, stop at the slit, 7 and 8. All right, next we need to put one more score line in this card at 4.5 inches, but this time the score will go from the inside of the slit from one side to the next. Now if you want, you can just take a ruler and place it so the edge of the ruler is at 4.5 inches, so that when you try to engage with that 4.5 inch score line, it's easy to find it right on your score pal. So that's a really good tip. Just use your ruler to help you find that. Now we have all the score lines on our paper that perfectly match the diagram that will be in your instructions. So usually I will kind of identify this shape and isolate that to make my card. So I'm going to bend at the bottom right here and then bend back at the second score. And then just kind of folds up like so, and fold back here. I mean, it just kind of wants to go into this position here and just make creases. Now, because you flipped the card base, the directions of the scores aren't always ideal, but I do think that's probably the best and easiest way to make the step-up card. Now, what's cool about this is the card is generally used as just a horizontally positioned card, but if you just turn it one turn to the right, it absolutely is happy to stand up vertically. So 2 of the cards you'll be making in this set are horizontal, 2 will be vertical, and you get to decide whether you want it on this side or you want it positioned this way. All right, so let's make a horizontal card, but the steps for whatever direction are exactly the same. Take our elements here, and obviously our narrow orange strips will be attached to these outer scored areas, and make sure that they don't cross over any score lines. Then we have this other area on the front of the card, so go ahead and put adhesive all over this larger orange panel, and this, you don't have to worry about the center, and center that within your card front. Very, very nice. It's your special day. There is room to write on the inside, but basically the tag and everything is on the outside of the card. Let's take a tour of all the cards in the Mumbai card set. Here we have card set A. We've got a Get Well with Feel Better Soon on the inside. We have Hello with Thinking of You. Happy birthday to you. Hope it's the best yet. And Hey with You're the Best. And really quick, this is where I had the wrong size panel, so these are actually shorter than yours will be on the inside, but it all worked out just fine. Set B, we have A Friend is One of the Nicest Things, and again, they really look sharp, and then the angled tag pocket. Thank you for being there. Notice I used the sequins, again, on the top of each tag, and added the elephant to the lighter shade cards. This darker color scheme, I used the fuchsia sequins. And here's the last one of the stand-up cards. Finally, the step-up cards. Here's a horizontal with the yellow sequins in each corner, and make it merry with the joy. Here's It's Your Special Day. That's the one we made together. And then for a vertical card with this area on the left, you'll notice that I actually cut a slot on both sides and added the sequin behind it. And that kind of is another neat way to utilize the remaining set of 4 blue sequins in your kit. Actually, the 2 blue here, and on this one I used the fuchsia. Now you notice on this one, I ended up, instead of having artwork here, I didn't have the artwork for this spot, so I used some of the plentiful amount of light blue velvet ribbon for that spot. Well, everyone at Club Scrap wishes you a very happy and creative new year. And if you're not a member of our Page Kit Club, be sure to join us, and you'll have a full-length tutorial of how to make 8 beautiful pages with the Mumbai collection. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next month.